Reality television I kind of discovered by accident. I happened to see a show, and the only person I knew in Los Angeles his name scrolled by at the end of the show. And I said, well, I've got to eat while I'm there trying to become a screenwriter, so why don't I look into this? And I ended up working on a reality show called Fear for MTV in the year 2000, and have stayed around in reality television now for 11 going on 12 years. I think that at its best, reality television is thought-provoking in a way that even most scripted television is not. There are certain shows like An Idiot Abroad. In the 1970s, we could make shows like All in the Family, where you had someone who was basically this closed-minded bigot was the center of the show, and the world just kept assailing him and his viewpoints of how everything was from the comfort of his chair in his living room. The same thing is happening now when you watch An Idiot Abroad, is you have Carl Pilkington, who is this guy who's a radio producer who has this very narrow worldview that they thought it would be funny to send him to all these exotic locations to see how he'd react. Well, it's the same thing. It's a man who is completely unable to handle culture outside of his current understanding, and it makes us think to ourselves at some point, well, geez, I don't want to be like that guy. That's the whole point of that show, at least to me. Anthony Bourdain's No Reservations is much the same way, as you're able to explore the world and see things in a way that I don't think that you do in scripted television. We don't fall back on stereotypes in a lot of reality shows. Now, I won't say that some reality shows don't, but a lot of reality shows are really kind of about expanding your perception of things that are outside what you already know. Occupational shows. You watch shows like Deadliest Catch, you watch shows like Ice Road Truckers, you get an idea about what these people go through to get goods and materials to you every day. So suddenly there's an understanding of, how difficult, if you're going to go out to a restaurant and order crab, how difficult it is for that to come there. You have a more developed idea of the world around you after watching certain types of reality television. That's the positive for me with reality TV. And I think that those kind of shows are on the rise. I think we're seeing a lot more of them and a lot less of what I believe Jennifer Posner referred to as the updated minstrel shows, which is what she called Flavor of Love. She was just like, it's that to her is the worst example of what you could do with reality TV. But I think we're seeing a lot less of that kind of stuff on television because viewers are just tired of that particular type of programming. The drawbacks in reality television, I think, depending on the production company and the types of shows, if you don't spend time being introduced to characters, you can force people into becoming caricatures of themselves. I don't think that serves any of us to watch that kind of television where you have things where people can be boiled down to something as easy as here's the jock, here's the kid from nowhere, here's the virgin, here's the slut, here's the this, here's the that, the people that are just sort of the one-word labels. I think the real world broke through that in the beginning and has had periods of time where it slipped back into it, where it's almost like, people are fulfilling certain roles on those kinds of shows. Those are the drawbacks for me because I think that they reinforce stupid stereotypes because it's easy storytelling. That's how you end up with stereotypes in the beginning, is it's easy storytelling. People who aren't willing to invest the time or the thought capital in creating something that's genuinely engaging and is genuinely curious about participants, I think that's the downside of reality TV, where people become the butt of the joke or there's pranks or bad things happen to them. It's going to get better, but for now, though, I think that's the downside of reality TV. Reality television, there are certain things on reality television, I think that the focus on the aspirational stuff, where you see someone who is self-made or starting a business or somebody who has a lot of stuff. Like sometimes, I'll watch TV and I'll see certain people and I'll say, boy, I wonder what it's like to have a $400,000 car. Gee, I wonder what it's like to have this. I don't let it affect my perception of myself, but then again, I'm 40 years old and it shouldn't. If I'm younger and I think that I watch television and I get the impression that I don't have a lot of worth because I don't have the prettiest dress at the prom or the best quality jewelry, or I don't have all of these extremely expensive accessories. That's where I think it becomes a little bit dangerous. And I think that parents need to be engaged with their kids no matter what they're watching, so that there isn't any kind of a poor lasting effect from a feeling of I'm less than these fictional characters on television, or these characters who are real but whose wealth is being amplified so that for the benefit of making me envy them. I think a lot of it comes from, we are in a position in this country now where I think that class division is more in focus than I think it has been in the past. I think that people are more conscious of what they have and what they don't have. And there's a certain mean-spiritedness that's just out there. I mean, even in comedy writing, I had a discussion with Larry Gelbart shortly before he passed away, where I was talking about how there seems to be so much mean-spirited humor now where I don't remember that from when I was a kid. And he said it's just because, the world is in a position where people are just meaner to each other. I mean, it's a reflection of what's going on out there. It really isn't originating with the media. The media may be reflecting those situations. Mm-hmm. But it's very odd. When I see movies like Mean Girls, what I would take away from that, again, as a 40-year-old adult male, is that, you've always had people who are sort of, they just behave poorly. They think they're slightly better than everybody else. I don't think that those are characters that anybody really wants to emulate. And most kids are like, oh, she's terrible. We want to root for the Emma Stone character. You don't want to root for, the girls who are doing the slam books and everything else. And when she gets caught up in that mess, you have to look at the end product, and it's just sort of like mean behavior is usually, there's some sort of, reciprocal something that comes down. The hammer drops at the end on the person who's been mean. That type of behavior is not celebrated. People don't like them. If you have a person on a reality show who behaves poorly, the other people typically react like, I can't believe that she would be like that. Why on earth would a person be like that? How is that celebrating that type of behavior? It's self-correcting. There are certain shows like the Rachel Zoe Project, for example. You have a designer who is very pushy and sort of demanding and kind of mean and kind of, just sort of commands people around her in a certain way. I don't know that people want to emulate Rachel Zoe, or if they want to feel badly for her staff, if they want to laugh at that kind of poor behavior. But I also happen to think that certain people who are very driven and want things a certain way, that they can be perceived that way when in fact they're just people who are driving very hard towards a specific goal and don't want to tolerate failure on any side of getting there.